Sorry. We're starting the CUSD 201 board meeting, November 15th, 2022. We'll start with roll call.
Jessica Rodonio,
Here.
Carlos Avia, Kevin Marin.
Here.
Angela Steckity,
Here.
Leah Conover, Laura Coyle,
Here.
Adina Hoover.
Here. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair will entertain a motion to enter closed session to discuss personnel issues, student discipline, and collective bargaining.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Coyle,
Yes.
Ms. Steckity,
Yes.
Mr. Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Rodonio,
Yes.
Ms. Hoover.
Yes.
for whatever happened this past weekend.
We're ready to restart. So returning from closed session, we'll move on to the approval of minutes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the October 25th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the first closed session of the October 25th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the second closed session of the October 25th, 2022 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the November 8th, 2022 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the November 8th, 2022 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the November 9th, 2022 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Lastly, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the November 9th, 2022 special meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You can see we don't have public comment. Moving on to the consent agenda. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. 1, personnel recommendations. Patricia Meza, Manning, 4th grade, long-term substitute. Deanne Rizak, teaching assistant. Paige Grimm, Westmont Junior High School, assistant cheerleader coach. Samantha Sarles, Westmont Junior High School, head of volleyball coach. Michael Farthing, Westmont High School, weight room supervisor at Westmont High School. Amanda Sarles, Westmont Junior High School volleyball coach volunteer. Benjamin Vidito, Westmont Junior High School wrestling coach volunteer, and resignations. 2, approval of the November 2022 expenditure report. 3, ratification of the October 2022 regular payroll. 4, renewal of the vision and dental insurance. Number 5, renewal of life, AD&D, and long-term disability.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
All right, done. Now we'll move on to information discussion, the Westmont High School presentation.
Thank you, Superintendent Carey and 201 Board of Education. For the last few years, we always give an annual report. It's one of my favorite reports because I get to brag about the amazing work of our teachers and students. You have a hard copy. If anybody who's watching this wanted a hard copy of this or a copy of it, they could email me and we'd send it to them. We're most proud to share the information. It really is incredible what our teachers and students have accomplished and with the support of the entire district and school community. So it's really something I'm most proud to be up here this evening. I had the chance this past weekend to be in New Orleans and present to 200 plus of the top educational authors and consultants and presenters and practitioners in the country. And I made a similar presentation and they were blown away by it. And that was really an exciting time for me to share the amazing work that's been done. So you see our theme is be compassionate, work hard, and dream big. That's what we live by. That's what we aspire to every day. And I'm really proud of that. The list of awards that we put on the back of our t-shirt for all of our students to wear with pride is on the second page and on the screen currently. They really highlight an amazing group of recognitions from all different places across the country, organizations like the United States Department of Education, Illinois State Board of Education, Solution Tree and the PLC work, the Golden Apple, the Great Schools Project, University of Chicago, all these organizations. Reported by the Illinois State Board of Education. This is brand new information though, because in the last couple of weeks on the front page of our local paper and the Tribune, the designations were announced. And we are exemplary, which is top 10% in Illinois. However, the thing that really is unique is that there's an index score that they have published where on a 100-point scale, Westmont has 97.92. Now, if you compare that to the bar graph where every single high school, public high school in Illinois is on this bar graph here. So from the far left, these are the schools that are in comprehensive or targeted recognition, the bottom 10% in the state, up to exemplary, the top 10% in the state. But what we have never seen before was how there's different groupings based by these numbers. So at the very far right, the top schools, the top 18, have a rating of 95 to 100. And Westmont, with a 97.92, is in that category. As far right, highest category possible. And this is a ranking by the Illinois State Board of Education. Now, Dr. Weck uncovered a lot of this really good information in these bar graphs and everything from ISBE. We called ISBE because we wanted to know where we rated in the top 18, because we think with a score of 97.92, we could be top 3 or 4 in the state. ISBE did not want to release that, so we put Mr. Delisle and his statistics class on it to try to do some investigating to see exactly where we were compared to other schools. So we're still awaiting that information, but I think there's a very good chance that we are in the top 5 or 10 schools out of 667 in the state. That's pretty amazing, and it's there. You know, there's many different reasons that come to making up that ranking, many different factors, and we're really proud of that. One of those factors is chronic absenteeism, and I want to say Dr. Kevin Weck, who's our assistant principal, has just done an incredible job with that for years, really tracking students, following up, looking at the data, supporting students with our entire team, and he has some information to present about this. But I do want to say, I mean, his work is incredible, and students can't learn if they're not present. So Kevin's, one of his primary responsibilities is really making sure that students are present in our building and not missing out on incredible learning opportunities, and he is like a hawk with this, and that results in some pretty incredible achievement data. So I'm going to turn it over to Kevin for a moment.
Thank you for those kind words, Mr. Baldwin. I'd also like to say thank you to our school board and Mr. Carey for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. It's a great sense of pride and joy that we get a chance to get together to recognize and celebrate all of the hard work from our students and staff and what they've been able to accomplish. It's a great night for us. The first slide I'd like to talk to you a little bit about is chronic absenteeism, and it's definitely a team effort. So I do want to give a shout out to our SRO, Jeremy Durst, and then also Ms. Diana Aguilar, who helps me a lot with the tracking and monitoring of student attendance and the opportunity to work with our ROE. So there's a lot of people that help support us as we try to accomplish the goals that we set forth each and every year. And 9% chronic absenteeism is an outstanding number as a team, because if you look at this slide up here, the state average is basically 30% of students are chronically absent. And what that means is that they've missed 10% of school days. And that can be excused or unexcused. So we've really made that a priority for all of us, our teachers and our students, that we reach out to one another, we support one another in trying to come to school each and every day so that they have the opportunity to be in those excellent classrooms and getting the support that they need to be successful. And this criteria, as Jack alluded to with that index score, the state has designated chronic absenteeism for high schools as 10% of our overall rating. So that's really a major component when you think about whether or not we can be exemplary or if we're going to be commendable. And having students in the classroom really sets them up for more success. And that's really been, just a great accomplishment for our students and our staff, working with our students on that. And we're top 5 out of 566. And we're going to continue to try to reach those goals, but it's getting more and more difficult with some of the restrictions by the state. The out-of-school suspension rate, I wanted to put this on here because this also ties into the 5 essentials data that's posted on the Illinois School Report Card, because we decided that, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, that we were going to focus on relationships with our students, and that we were going to take it from being a punitive measure and shift it to this idea of restorative justice and making it more of a restorative practice where we work with students, we give them the support that they need so that they aren't repeating the mistakes that got them into that position to begin with. And that's why we've seen such a reduction in terms of the out-of-school suspensions. Our faculty, and it's part of the 5 essentials data, our students trust and believe in our teachers because our teachers care about our students. And that right there is first and foremost in trying to, convincing students to do the right things in school each and every day. And they are, influenced by that to make good decisions. We had an average of about 126 out-of-school suspensions per year, which if you calculate that, there's 36 weeks in a year, you're suspending 5 to 6 students a week. And it's been reduced down to, now we're at 1 every 2 weeks or so. And we don't turn a blind eye to when students are making mistakes, but really we try to be proactive, visible, and in the trenches with them each and every day so that they are focused more on being their best self and doing the right thing so that they can be successful. But it's a team effort when it comes to this. So just a couple things that I'm really proud of from the high school, because it is that team effort, and just really proud of our students and staff with that. And at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Balderman. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is our assistant principal, Laura Lopez, who's just completed her first quarter with us, but we're so glad that she's joined our team. She is just such a positive influence, hardworking, ready to take on any challenge, and already making a difference in our building. So I'd like her just to speak to the board and Mr. Carey for a moment here.
So thank you so much for including me today. I'm very, very grateful and very happy to be here. My 15th year in education, been in 3 different districts, and I can't put it any more lightly, like the environment and the culture in this district, at Westmont High School, just some wonderful example of teachers and kids that I've worked with. It just inspires you to be even better and to continue, helping each other be the best version of themselves. I can't even explain it. So every day I come into work and I literally am just excited about what more I can do, what more I need to learn, and how more I can support, my staff and my students. It's really been like the best like experience I've ever had. And I know it sounds cheesy, but it is. So I can't wait to get my data slides up there pretty soon. I don't know what they're gonna look like yet, but you know, just the culture and climate is just truly inspirational. So I come in every day feeling very blessed and wanting to support, you know, my staff and my teachers and my kids as much as I can, and, you know, hopefully be able to continue to make my mark here at Westmont. So thank you.
Thanks, Laura. This data was just released, but this fall, so we haven't had a chance to report on it again. But the 5 Essentials, as you know, is created by the University of Chicago, one of the top research institutions in the world. And it is a benchmark not only for our district, but for the state. And there are 556 high schools in Illinois who take the 5 Essential exam. And I think it's pretty remarkable that we had the best overall results of any high school in Illinois. Not top 1%, but number 1. Now, when you break down the data, not only were we number 1 overall in the state, but I think the thing that perhaps we're most proud of beyond the awards is when it comes to student-to-teacher trust. 97% of our students took this survey. It is taken by adolescents anonymously, and their report is that we have the number 1 student-to-teacher trust score in Illinois. And that wasn't just a good year, because we had the same last year and the same 3 years ago. So in the last 4 years, we've had the top score. So I'd like to have one of our students, Josh Graham, come up representing the student body and say a few words about the relationship and how this was established.
Thank you, Mr. Balderman. Hello, everyone. My name is Josh. I'm a junior at Westmont High School, and I hope all of you are having a great night. So to begin, I'd like to talk about some of the student-to-teacher trust at the high school. And in short, what I can say is it's unmatched. It's some of the best in the country, truthfully. And as a student, I can honestly say that I feel comfortable going up to any of my teachers, no matter what it is, whether it's help for school, whether I just need someone to talk to, someone to support me. Complete comfort. I feel like I could go up to them, and they are always there, and they're always very supportive and very understanding. So a couple examples just from this year actually include them asking us about like our personal lives, our extracurriculars, our jobs, just so that they can better accommodate to our schedules and help us find a better school to life balance. And I think that's really important, and it helps keep our stress levels down. And another example is their continuous push for us to succeed in our classes. They do this in a variety of ways. They offer us retakes. Our math teacher won't let us score below 80% without retaking. So the support is there. It's hard to fail a class in Westmont High School. Like, you have to actively work at it. The teachers, the teachers are so supportive. They give us so many opportunities to succeed. They want us to succeed. And actually today, I went up to one of my teachers asking for some advice, not related to school. I just needed some help with a problem I was dealing with in my personal life, and without hesitation, she was there. Without hesitation. She came up to me, she helped me come up with a good solution. She helped me work through the problem. And that's just the kind of atmosphere that Westmont High School fosters. And that's like the kind of people that our teachers are. And I think I speak on behalf of all of the students in Westmont High School when I say we love our teachers. We love our teachers, and they are so supportive, and we really, really appreciate everything that they do for us. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you, Josh. That it really sums it up better than I could say. One of the other 5 essentials is collaborative teachers, and we have the number 1 score of any high school in Illinois, and that really makes a difference. And I want to say tonight, to speak about that, we have 2 amazing representatives, the leaders of our math and literacy departments, Mark Delisle and Anna Jakubowski. The incredible thing is, after the Blue Ribbon Award, after the DeFore Award, after Exemplary and 10 out of 10 and all those awards, these people do not rest on their laurels. They are the embodiment of continuous improvement. This past summer, and I'm not exaggerating, we were selected from any school in the state to work on a project in conjunction with the Illinois Principals Association to help the most struggling schools in Illinois. And you would think that people who are as accomplished as Mark and Anna and their teammates would say, we've got this. They went on literally to read dozens of books this summer and really fine-tune their game. They are the embodiment of continuous improvement. They don't think just because we score the highest in category after category after category that we're good enough. They still are fighting and grinding to get better and better. So to speak to why we earned the #1 rating on 5 Essentials and Collaborative Teachers, we have Mark Delisle, our math department coordinator, and Anna Jakubowski, our literacy department, English department coordinator.
Hi, it's so good to see all of you. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. We won't try to talk too long. So we wanted to talk a little bit about collective teacher efficacy, because that's one of these categories in the 5 Essentials, and we know how important it is, and why it matters to us is we can't really focus on student learning if we're not all kind of on the same page. So we're really lucky that we have a very supportive board and we have an amazing administration. You know, there's been vision for us and goals from the beginning. Like, that's really hard for schools to have everybody that knows their role, everyone knows what they're supposed to do if there's not a clear vision. You know, every faculty meeting, every meeting that we meet with Jack, like, there's just, this is what we're doing, this is what we're working towards, this is why it's important, and I think that is something that we really pride ourselves on. Everybody is leading from every seat. We read a book about it this summer, it was amazing. So I think it's one of those things, like collective teacher efficacy. If you want to be good at that, you have to really kind of rely on each other and work together in conjunction to work towards those clear visions and goals that we've set forth.
And I think all of this whole presentation, and Josh, with his wisdom beyond his years, hit on it, was it's all based on the relationship that we have with the students, and it's all based on the relationship that we have with the administration and the school board and everything else being supportive. None of this happens without that relationship. And so it's easy when we're going into our teams, and as a teacher leader and as a teacher, it's easy to motivate teachers when they know they're going to get results, when they know that what they are doing every day is affecting student learning directly. And so when we get together, there's one mission, and that's to increase student learning.
We're data-driven. We make changes on the fly, on the spot. We are constantly fixing up our SAT intervention and trying to help kids, you know, open those doors and opportunities for themselves by looking at their individual scores, their individual data. I mean, the kids know. They'll come right up to us and how did I do on this test? And they know that we are crazy and know their numbers, and tell them exactly how far they are from the benchmark, and helping them grow and instill that confidence, encourage them. Like, that's really important to us, to make sure that they are confident going into some of these really difficult, high-stress situations.
And we never say that they don't know it. It's always they haven't mastered it yet. So we always give them the opportunity to show that mastery.
One other thing about collective teacher efficacy that I think is important is you'll notice the retention rate at our school. Like, people don't want to leave. It feels very much like a family. Everyone loves each other, and it's just such a wonderful environment. There's autonomy. There's implicit teacher trust. We don't have anyone telling us, this is what you have to teach, and this is why. Because we know what we have to teach because we have the data to prove what we have to teach. We don't just shoot into the dark, oh, I'm not sure what they should learn. I mean, we know exactly what the deficiencies are, and our PLCs are second to none.
And I always tell my team and my students as well that we don't just work together, or I just don't teach you. We actually do life together. We have conversations. They're not just test scores. You know, we know every kid's name. They're not just a test score that we have to increase. We want them to go on and be super successful after high school.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mark and Anna are amazing, and they represent what I think is one of the best faculties in the country. They are just, and staffs, our support staff is also amazing. They will do anything for our students. They'll go through a wall for them, and that's how we get the results. Quickly, the Blue Ribbon Award, we know, we haven't seen you since that time, but we didn't just win the award, we are the most diverse school to win this award in 25 years. It's dominated by affluent schools, private schools, and selective enrollment schools. Only 13 high schools have won Blue Ribbon in the last 16 years. The average free and reduced percentage of those schools is 6%. That puts it in perspective. 32% at Westmont. That really, I think, is a powerful statement. The great schools think same thing. We're the most diverse school with the highest percentage of students living in economic poverty to get that rating, and the only one in DuPage County, which has some spectacular schools. So that's another source of pride. But it's not just these, it's just not just the achievements, the improvement. The most important thing that we do is teach our students to be compassionate citizens who give back to this world. And I'm very proud to introduce Ella and Daphne, who are going to talk a little bit about the groundbreaking work that they have done as students and our student body have done as members of the PRC, People's Resource Center of DuPage Junior Board. So I'd like to welcome up two of our student leaders to talk about that.
Hello, so I'm Daphne and this is Ella. We're the co-presidents of the PRC Junior Board at Westmont High School, which essentially, we're just a collaboration between our high school and the Westmont People's Resource Center, which is actually a huge honor because we were the only school chosen to run this operation, which is, it's insane because there's such a good organization that have allowed us to take part in their giving back to the community. We essentially work to just support them through individual service opportunities, like we volunteer at our local food pantry, and we also run fundraisers like trivia nights and supply drives. And it's really just such a great organization because it allows us to develop life skills like public speaking. It's been a development. We also just learn how to give back to our community, which has really done so much for us, like Josh and Mr. Delisle and Ms. Jakubowski were talking about. It's such a great school community that allows us to run this organization that just allows us to give back.
Hi everyone, good evening. So Daphne and I have been on this board since I think freshman year. We joined because her sister was the president and she made me. And I really did not know what it was at all. And then I realized I had 20 volunteer hours to do that I was not on board at all. And then I started going and I started really enjoying it and engaging with my community. And now we are both co-presidents, and I am so in love with this organization and all the ambitious people, the incredibly ambitious people that I get to work with every single day. And this entire organization, basically our goal is to present leadership opportunities for students. And speaking of, our little organization actually earned the WSPN 2022 Young Philanthropists of the Year Award. Which was truly such an honor because everyone worked so hard and everyone cares so much. Oh, yeah, we went.
No, I mean what Ella said. She was not exaggerating when she said that we actually love this. You wouldn't think, most people wouldn't think that volunteering is something that kids and students would love, but we've actually learned to genuinely love it. We are required to get 20 hours, but we've easily gotten over 100 each year. So
yeah, I think as a school we achieved over 600 hours last year, which was so crazy.
Insane. So yeah, thank you to Mr. Balderman for helping set up this school community that allows us to run this organization.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for the opportunity to share our accomplishments of our amazing teachers and students. We couldn't be more proud of them. But as everybody mentioned, it's an entire district, starting with Superintendent Carey and the board and the whole school community that pulls together and supports us. So we're proud of what we've done, but we've done it as part of a team. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the team at all? I just want to say, as a new consider himself a new parent still of the high school. I also want to give accolades to the teachers like that. You guys are awesome. Like, I honestly feel like, can I take your class? So that's how inspired I am, even like through a conference. So thank you so much for all that you do. We're going to move on to the Illinois School Report Card.
You guys don't have to stay. This isn't gonna be as exciting as what you guys just presented.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Great job.
Is this, James' shoes? Oh, yeah, thank you. Okay, so at the end of October, the state of Illinois, or the state of Illinois Board of Education releases the school report cards, and so this evening, typically our November meeting, I then present to the board kind of an overview of how our district performed, and this isn't a deep dive. As an admin team, we're still looking at the data and digging into it, but I can share with you some of the information that is presented in the school report card. And so it provides a little bit of the financial information for the district. Again, just kind of an overview. There's some student demographic information. Then we have information about our most recent graduating class. And then some of our student data, and then our accomplishments and some of our next steps we're taking as a district. And so in terms of our district finances, first of all, this kind of gives you a breakdown of where our revenue comes from, and not surprising, we have 88% of our revenue is coming from local sources, and so we're very appreciative of our local community, because this is our homeowners, our businesses, is the taxes that are generated from the property in the district, and so by far most of our revenue comes from our local residents of our district, and so we're very appreciative of that. And then we get a little bit from the state, 7.8%, and federal, 4.1%. One of the interesting facts, though, about how schools are funded, so often, we just came off an election cycle, and so often we hear that a candidate may be the, education governor, representative, senator, president, whatever the title is, but those percentages change very little, depending, it doesn't matter who's in power, who controls the Senate, the House at the state or federal level. Roughly it's about 4% federal and about 7% state, and so that really doesn't change that much regardless of who is there. And then when you start taking a look at our expenditures, I always say that all of these expenditures goes into the education of our students, and so the biggest portion of our expenditures for instruction, for education, so that's 53%, and that's our teaching staff, that's our support staff, it's all the materials that we use in our classrooms, it's all those things going to educating our students. And so then we also have student support services and general admin, but the largest percentage of our expenditures goes towards educating our students. And again, I can make the, even cleaning our buildings, maintaining our buildings, that environment helps our students. And so everything we do is for the education of our students. And then there's, most recently, the last couple of years, they started doing per pupil expenditures based on the schools. Now, one thing I want to point out is if you look at the current report card, it'll have South School at $90,000 per student. And so that is an error. And, because,
got real big.
I said to Anthony, I said, we've been right around 33% of our $32,000 per student for South, and it jumped up to 90. And so Anthony was able to look into it, and a couple things that happened. One was the director of student services, that individual services all of our schools. but the salary was attributed only to South. So first of all, you gotta take that salary and divide it over 5 schools. And then the second thing was transportation, especially special education transportation. Again, the billing goes through student services, but we have students throughout the district that are sometimes transported by cab or bus for special education purposes. And so all that looked like it was coming out of South. And so when you make that correction, it ends up being 37,000. And that will be updated in our report card by the end of November, beginning of December. So that will be reflected there, but that is an error that's on the report card.
Will that reflect in the other numbers as well? Because
Yes.
so we'll see the other numbers.
Right, the other numbers
Trend up a little bit?
will trend up a little bit, and, but South will decrease. The reason for the disparity, you know, there's a couple different reasons. You gotta take a look at the age of the staff. More veteran staff, their salaries are higher. And so sometimes a building has a higher per student cost, in part because they have a more veteran staff. Number of staff in the building also has an impact on that. And then typically it is more expensive to operate a high school than it is an elementary school. You know, it's just the different programming, you know, even if you look at a field like science and the types of labs that are done at the high school level versus what you're doing at the elementary level, it's different. So all those different budget items and accounts account for that. And then you can see the enrollment. That's a little bit different than sometimes you see the enrollment when we talk about the enrollment in our buildings, because that does take into consideration out of district placement and some of those other situations. And then you see the percent low income in each of our buildings that we have. They're all about 32%. And then the percent of English learners in each of our schools that we have, and then the students with IEPs. And then last is our summative designation. And as was mentioned earlier, our high school is exemplary. The third time that the State Board of Ed has awarded those designations during COVID. There was a year or two where they didn't have the designations. And then our other three buildings received the second highest, which is commendable. And so we're very proud of that, especially, again, as we move through the pandemic, that we were able to maintain those designations for all of our schools. In terms of the demographics for our buildings, if you look at our ethnicity, we're about 61% white as a district, 9.4% black, 26.2% Hispanic, and then 2 or more races, 4.1%. And then as far as other demographics, we have about 19% of our students have IEPs in the district, and that can be anything from needing speech services to, in some cases, some of our students need more intensive support than that. We have 9% of our students are English learners, so the English was not the language spoken at home for those students. And then we have, as a district, 33% low income, 2.5% homeless. Our attendance rate is 94% as a district, which again, with everything that has transpired with schools, that's an amazing percent that we have maintained. You know, other districts have reported seeing a decrease in attendance, but, and similar to what the high school shared earlier, a lot of that is attributed to the approach all of our buildings take towards attendance. A student choosing not to attend is not something that will be accepted. You know, in all of our buildings, our administrators do home visits at homes if students are not coming. We utilize our resource officer. We utilize all those resources to make sure that we're getting students attending. Our mobility rate is 6.5%, chronic absent for the district, 12.5%.
Kevin, what do you mean by the mobility rate?
Pardon?
Mobility rate, what do you mean by that?
Mobility rate is students who are moving in and out of the district during their school year.
Okay.
So we're at about 6.5%. So you see some move-ins shortly after the start of the school year, but then throughout the year you may have families move in and out of the district. So that's the mobility rate. Then as far as our class of 22, we have 91% of our students went on to attend either a 4-year or 2-year college. 6% opted for the workforce, 1% attending a vocational technical program, and then 2% chose a gap year. And again, we have a 97% graduation rate, which is amazing. And as Jack pointed out earlier, 100% for our Hispanic and our Black students. So definitely, we're doing some amazing things. The 5 essential surveys, there's 5 categories that schools are measured, and it's effective leaders, collaborative teachers, involved families, ambitious instruction, and supportive environment. And then through surveys of students, teachers, and parents, each of those categories, a school receives 1 of 6 ratings. And so most, that's the highest rating down to low if it's, a very poor rating. And then it's now the student surveys go down to 4th grade. Now the challenge, I'll be honest with you, when you look at the 5 essential survey questions, the challenge is the same questions are asked to a senior in high school are the same questions asked to a 4th grader. So, there's some question about, 4th and 5th graders, if they're understanding, the question as they're responding. So it's a little bit difficult, but, the parents are responding and the teachers in each of those buildings. And so when you take a look at the 5 essentials, based upon the ratings in those categories, determines how well positioned is a school for school improvement. And so our high school, you can see, had almost the top rating almost every category. Business instruction more, but it's well organized for school improvement. And so that's the highest rating. The junior high as well had more or average as all of its ratings, and it's well organized for school improvement. The at Miller, because you don't get the student surveys, the student surveys is where you get the rating for ambitious instruction and supportive environment. So that ratings they don't have, but they're organized for school improvement. And then for Manning, they received average or more for all their ratings, and they are organized for school improvement. When we start getting into some of the data for the performance on the state assessment for Manning in English language arts, what kind of is nice to see there, definitely we're not quite where we were prior to the pandemic. But if you take a look at how we performed last year on the assessment versus this year, we're starting to close that gap. So we're starting to get back on track, and those students are starting to perform better. And so that's a positive to see. The same thing in math. We're not quite where we were in the pre-pandemic part, but we are starting to see again that we're improving and we're growing where we need to be. When you look at the achievement gap, this is for various different groups where we're at with our achievement gap for Manning, and you can kind of see how our low-income students compare to our non-low-income students, how our black students compare to white students, our Hispanic students compare to our white students. So we can kind of see where those achievement gaps are. So those are the areas then we need to focus on to make sure that we start to close those gaps. And so the goal then is next year, after the assessment, that we'll see those gaps closing for us. The shift from when we were No Child Left Behind to where we are now is before it was always you looked at just how students performed on the assessment each year. Now it's about student growth. And so when you take a look at our student growth for Manning, we had a 50% student growth, which is the state wants somewhere between 40 and 60% growth. That's their target. And so we're well within that target for Manning on the IAR. And then when you start taking a look at the scatter plot for Manning, this shows where Manning, the triangle, is compared to other schools that have a similar low-income percentage. And so you can see that Manning is outperforming most schools, like schools, than Manning is, and that's in math. And so that's, again, and this actually should say not achievement gap, but ELA. And so, again, Manning's right there about in the middle of the scatter plot compared to other schools. When we start taking a look at the junior high, we're seeing the same trend. They are not as far off from where they were pre-pandemic, but we're also seeing a little bit of growth from the prior year on the ELA assessment. And then for math, same thing. They're closing the gap on where they were pre-pandemic, and they're a little bit better than what they were the prior year. And then when we again look at their achievement gap between those three groups, low income, Hispanic students, and Black students, we can kind of see where we are compared to those other groups with our achievement gap. Hopefully it's a little bit easier to see in the
Yeah, it's still pretty small.
yeah, and it's pretty small even on this screen here. Either that or I have to get my new prescription for my glasses. And then when we look at the junior high growth, again, they're within that range that the state anticipates, between that 40 and 60. And so that's good to see. And again, it's the growth now that is emphasized with the state of Illinois. If we take a look at their scatter plot again for schools that are like the junior high, they're kind of at the top of their group. There are some outliers that are above them, but in ELA, they're about at the top, and same thing in math. They're towards the top of those schools, outperforming similar schools. When we start looking at the SAT for the high school, interesting enough, 21, there really wasn't a drop-off pre-pandemic. A little bit this past year for our students in ELA. And then the same in math, a little bit of a drop-off in the math for SAT. The achievement gap, what's really nice to see here, again, the top graph is low income, the difference between low-income students and non-low-income students. The middle graph is our Black students, our white students. You'll see for this past year, there was no achievement gap for our Black students and our white students. So that's awesome to see for our high school. And then when you look at the Hispanic, there's a little bit of achievement gap there with our Hispanic students. And then when we take a look at the map, we'll see the same trend there. When you take a look at our Black students compared to our white students, no achievement gap in math on the SAT, which is awesome to see. High school scatter plot, again, they're at the top of their grouping for these like schools. Some outliers, most of those are charter schools, private schools, a couple of public schools, but for the most part, public schools, our high schools out-achieving those. And then the same thing with the math, that for the most part, they're achieving better than like schools in math. The one new thing that the report card has is the equity journey. And if you notice, the student learning, we're right there at a large gap, moderate gap. And when you do a deeper dive into that data, one of the things that is occurring is they take a look at the percent of 8th graders passing algebra. And that's the piece of data that's impacting that the most. If that was higher, then we'd be over probably between that 3-4 range. It's not necessarily our students are not passing algebra. It appears that it's more how we name our junior high courses. And so we're working on that piece. And so it's basically how we name our courses is how the State Board of Ed then interprets what courses you are taking. And so it's not that our students aren't passing math. It's just that we have to take a look at how we're naming our courses. And because in all of our, we have 2 different math courses, and both math courses, the students are taking algebra. It's just that one is called Math 1, which is similar to what the high school calls their course, and that's what the state looks at as algebra.
So the state's not comparing apples to apples? Is that what you're saying?
Right,
okay.
Right, and it's because of how we title the courses. So, yeah. And then in terms of accomplishments, we mentioned, our high school had a 97% graduation rate. The junior high has a service learning requirement. All of our students had met their service learning requirement. Our early childhood center has received the Golden Circle of Quality, which is the highest rating for an early childhood program. The high school is consistently ranked in the Washington Post as one of the top schools, and it's one of the top 1% of high schools in the U.S. The high school has been named a PLC Model School, won the DeFore Award, Blue Ribbon winner. The junior high is a designation of an Illinois Horizon School to Watch. They're currently going through the process to retain that recognition. And so they should know sometime after the first of the year if they met the criteria to retain that. And again, South Early Childhood is Gold Circle of Quality winner. And some of the best practices, the evidence-based funding model is based upon best practice in your schools. And so these are some of the best practices that we have in our district. We have a full-day kindergarten program. We have instructional coaches in our schools. We have a summer school program that we offer, embedded technology, dual language program, and we have professional learning communities in all of our schools. In terms of our next steps, we continue to take a look at the IAR and SAT and look at those questions and how our students performed and what areas are our students not achieving. We identify those questions that are incorrectly answered in the frequency, and then we identify the gaps in our curriculum, and then we create formative assessments aligned to the standards. The professional learning community models, we will continue to meet in grade level teams, increase our articulation between grade levels, really focusing on that. There's already been some work done between junior high and high school articulation, and then also between elementary and junior high. Increase alignment of our curriculum, and then the common formative and some of the assessments aligned to the common core. At the elementary, junior high, utilizing iReady and local data to drive our instruction. And then we're continuing to focus on critical thinking, problem solving, communication skills. The junior high is looking at either a win, whatever I need, which is what we're doing at the elementary level, or the high school has a similar program they call ASAP to provide additional support for those students who need it. Miller and Manning are using Otis to track student performance on the Illinois standards. And then again, we have a win period at both Manning and Miller, and then at the high school, ASAP. Before I get into questions, one other thing that I should have added is the other thing that we're doing this year as a district. There's a book, Small Changes, Big Impact, that as an admin team we read it and discussed it. And we're doing it as a district-wide book this year. Each of the buildings are doing it and having some discussion, and then we're hoping that some of our staff will start to dabble a little bit, as we say, start to, on their own, implement some of those practices. But then we have the author who's going to be working with our staff after the first of the year. And so he's going to be working with a core group of teachers from each of the buildings. And then next fall, we'll have pilot groups that are implementing some of those ideas and those concepts. And basically, it's along the same lines of a lot of things that we've been doing as a district. Mark mentioned, the growth mindset and how we talk to our students. It's not that you can't do it, it's just not yet, and that there's no reason why you're not going to be able to learn how to do it. And so it incorporates concepts of the growth mindset. It also really gets teachers to reflect on their grading practices, because so much of what we do in grading was dictated by when we had factories and what the owners of factories needed in their buildings. They put pressure on the schools to produce those types of students. And then the other thing that became part of that process as well is that when we went from small rural schools where teachers had a small number of students and they could give feedback to students on their performance, and we started to get more urban areas and suburban areas, higher class sizes, teachers no longer had the ability to give that feedback, and so they were trying to come up with an easier way to tell students how they're performing, and so it was A, B, C, D, F. And so they started handing out grades because it was quicker, it was easier, but we weren't getting any meaningful feedback at the same time. And then there was the whole concept of, you know, Jack loves this conversation, the bell curve, you know, and it's, you know, basically, well, you know, the distribution of grades, so many students have to be A students, but we also have to have so many students failing. And so there's a lot of history that goes into the grading practices, and so it's kind of getting us all discussing those grading practices, and we've made a lot of progress there. But, you know, getting away from that 100-point scale, you know, for instance, because, you know, to go from a 60 to 70 is 10 points, but going from a 30 to 60 is 30 points. Does that make sense? And so, you know, that's part of it, is our teachers looking at their grading practices and how they're working with our students and giving meaningful feedback, and students taking more ownership for their learning and being able to self-reflect on their learning processes. And so that's something else that we're doing as a district, we're taking on as a district, that I think will have a significant impact on our practices in our classrooms, and then help us with those achievement gaps that we're seeing, and improve our performance on our state assessments. But also, when we start talking about our portrait of a graduate, it gets us further along that continuum, so that our students that we graduate from our high school align with our portrait of a graduate. So any questions?
I don't know,
Like,
just jumping in.
I know, I was thinking as you said that, like, from the history of grades and things like that, I guess coming from that, are they looking at like, you know, this is where grading came from, and they're ready to put people right in the workforce and the factories? Do they look at what our climate or what our outcomes are now in our workforce, and is that, you know, changing how we do things and grading? Does that reflect what's happening beyond high school, I guess?
Right, that's the goal, because the student now needs to be a lifelong learner, needs to be able to be a problem solver, creative problem solver, needs to be able to work collaboratively with others in a teaming environment, be resilient, you know. And so those are all the things that, right, we want to implement in our classroom, so that those are the students that we see when they graduate.
I get that. This is try not to name schools, but a conversation in becoming a physician in different schools and how we chose. And there were some schools that taught you how to think, and there are some schools that taught you how to pass the test. And, you know, students, or as a student, we were, you know, conflicted, like, okay, do I study for that test, or do I study to be that thinking physician? And then we kind of laughed at ourselves, like, once we're beyond that, oh, I didn't get the top score on this standardized test. But if you ask a person, hey, this is where I came from, and this, who do you want to be your physician? They chose this group because they taught us how to be thinkers and to continue learning, as to just for that goal to say, I got, you know, 100% on this standardized test. So it's something, it's frustrating because you want to show, you know, yeah, this, I love to see the score, but what about that student that went from a 30 to a 60? What did they do? That's, you know, that's successful. They learned how to transform themselves and learn how to learn. And so, or they had a teacher that invested in them and taught them how to learn. So it's a feat.
And our philosophy is, if we have our students, if they're thinkers, that also translates to performance on tests as well, you know.
Okay, so I have a couple of things. One thing on the enrollment and per pupil expenditures, I'm really happy to hear that we didn't actually spend $93,000 per student at South. I mean, yes, happy and whatever. But in any event, I think something that would help me to understand the per pupil expenditures a little bit better, you know, is to kind of understand how many, what's like our staff to student ratio at each of these schools, right? Because I know like at South, our staff, not just teacher to student ratio, but our staff to student ratio is very different than it is at all the other schools. And so I think that would just be helpful as we talk about per pupil expenditures, even though it's not something that we necessarily report on. But for us as a board who's responsible for the financial security of the district, to understand that, okay, this is our per pupil expenditures, but also our schools are very similar in staff to student, or they're way far off in staff to student ratio. So that's more of a comment and kind of as we continue to talk about these things. And then a question on the income, the student demographics. So we're sitting at 33.7% low income. How has that changed, or how have we seen it? How is that trending? Because I know that part of the community feels like it's changing to some extent. You know, we've got different houses being built and whatever. Have we pretty consistently been around like 33%, or have we seen that actually drop or grow, or do we know?
As a district, it has creeped up, you know.
Okay.
Over the last, I would say it's been consistent the last couple of years. Prior to that, we were lower. And then it actually varied from building to building. We traditionally, when we were 2K5 buildings, traditionally had a higher percentage at the at Miller. And so they would qualify for Title I funds, but Manning did not qualify for Title I funds. And then depending upon where the percent hit at the high school and junior high, and it sometimes varied from year to year. One year, junior high would qualify for Title I funds, the high school wasn't, and then the next year they both were, and then neither was. But now, the last few years, consistently all of our buildings have been receiving Title I funds based upon the 30% threshold is what it is for the Title I funds.
But it's been trending up.
Yes.
Okay, so, because I think there tends to be conversation, or at least I have conversations in the community around the
Real estate.
community members being priced out, right, of living in Westmont. So that's something that I think many of our community members are really happy with, is the economic and is the economic diversity that we have within our district, surrounded by districts that are not hugely diverse. So that's very interesting, and it's good to know that has been trending up and not down, because my concern was that it was trending down. And if it was trending down, then, that is a concern. But that's also a conversation piece of, okay, so then my last piece, and I think I brought this up last year too, and I'll probably bring it up next year. Manning and Miller are not as prevalent as South, the junior high, and the high school. And I know these last couple of years were particularly challenging for the students in those schools, but I also know that we made a really tough decision in choosing to turn those two schools into grade level centers. And so I think this is more of a statement of like hopes and dreams that we see something different start to come out of that decision specifically, because the reasons that we made that decision were around student success, and this is last year's ratings. We were not official last year. This year we're official. So even if it doesn't show up in the report card for next year in the way that we'd really love it to, I want to make sure that we still talk about where we're gaining successes there on that specific change, and how we're getting forward. Because Manning and Miller, I know from experience, are exceptional schools, and we want them to show up here equally, right? It feels like South, and then kind of nothing, and then junior high, high school. We want to make sure that it's talking about all of our schools from there on. So that's more of a statement. So,
sure.
Cool.
And I would agree. I think this is our first true year, committed to the model. And just based upon what I've been seeing at Miller and Manning and conversations with Lindsay and Tim, I think we will start to see that reflected in state report card data, but in other measures as well.
Good,
So
good,
I
wonderful.
think it'll start to happen, yes.
I'm glad to hear that it's kind of front of mind, because
Yes.
look, data is data, and you can manipulate it in 97 million different ways. You can make it say whatever you want it to say sometimes, if you're not super ethical with it, but we are very ethical with it. But understanding that these pieces are front of mind because ultimately it means student success and family success is that piece, because that's how we make the decisions we make. So, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Moving on, we'll go to the tentative 2022 tax levy.
Let's get out of this, so that. Come on, there it is.
Seems like yesterday we were presenting the budget.
I know.
Not that tech savvy. Should be good. So I'm gonna be going through the 2022 tentative levy. This process and approval process happens every single year, not just this year. All school districts in Illinois would need to approve a levy. First comes the tentative levy, which usually happens in November, and then the approval process for the tax levy in December. But this isn't a new process. This is an annual approval process for the board. So going through the approval cycle, it starts with communicating with the Board of Education. So last night at the Finance Committee meeting, which is open publicly to the community, we went through the PowerPoint that's being presented tonight. So we dove into each slide, kind of the what makes up the levy, but that occurred last night, and then tonight with the tentative levy. I'll explain more what a truth in taxation means, but the truth in taxation posting will be posted in the newspaper December 1st, and then December 13th we'll have the approval of the levy at the next board meeting. By law, school districts have to file the levy to the county clerk by the last Tuesday of December, which is the 27th. So key terms that I want to go through, there are three that are important. So the tax levy is what we are requesting to the county clerk, what we are asking for the clerk to assess property taxes and revenue. The extension is what we actually receive. So the tax levy process are a mixture of knowns and unknowns. So that's why the levy is an ask and an extension is what we actually receive. So we won't know the extension come February, March. The last one would be PTEL, the Property Tax Extension and Limitation Law. So that law states that school districts have to receive the lesser of CPI or 5%. Well, the levy in the CPI hasn't been above 5% since 1990. So it's always been that lesser, the CPI. So this year, we are requesting more than 5%, and the reason for that is because to capture inflation. And if school districts ask for more than 5%, the truth in taxation hearing needs to happen. So that's why there's a process. And historically, the district's always had a truth in taxation levy hearing. So the district of Westmont always asked for more than 5%. Do they receive 5%? No, but they always ask for 5%. Because if we ask and don't receive that, we lose those funds forever. So of the fiscal year 23 budget, 82% of revenue comes from property taxes. So this process that does happen every year is extremely important to fund the education for the district. And then explaining the unknowns and knowns of the levy process. So the unknown is the projected EAV. So EAV is the assessed value of each home. So that's an unknown at the time of calculating the levy. So we're projecting an 8.2% increase from prior year, and that's just because of house, markets increasing. So we're projecting a higher cost of EAV. The known is last year's levy. So excluding debt service, the capped levy funds were about 24.6% or $24.6 million. That's the known. We also know that CPI, which is being used to calculate this levy, is 7%, and that 7% is from December 2020 through December 2021. So that's the 7%. And again, it hasn't been over 5% since 1990. We know that the cap is 5% of what the districts can receive. So that's the max we can receive plus new property growth. And the unknown is new property. So that is a very important factor of calculating the levy and what we can actually receive. So because of high inflation, we are projecting an $8 million growth of new property. Here's a breakdown historically of EAVs in the district. Here is a breakdown historically of new property growth. So as the arrow shows, that is projected for this levy year, $8 million. And then this is an important slide, CPI history. So looking back to 2014, it's been extremely low. And that arrow shows that's that 5% cap. So that difference of 7% to 5% is coming from the expenditures. Inflation costs are increasing, cost of goods are increasing. So we're only getting that 5%, but the CPI is above 5%. And here is a breakdown of what we are projecting for the tentative levy. So using what we know and unknown, we're looking at a increased tax rate decrease of 4.4%. So what does that mean? Last year's tax rates were 4.5%. This year, it's a decreased tax rate of 4.4%. And tax rates are what the district taxes the body. So there's a decrease of tax rates this year. And the reason for it is because if house prices increase, the tax rates decrease. If the house prices decrease, the tax rates increase. Overall, we are looking at a 6.49% increase from prior year. Again, that is the tax levy. That's what we are asking the county, is a 6.49% from prior year. Again, we are only getting 5% plus new property growth. And that new property growth won't come until February and March, when the county assessor's office gets the actual data. Here's a breakdown of looking at average homes in the area. So using the projected tax rate of 4.4%, a house in Westmont, the average is $314,000. The property taxes from the district would be around $4,300. Again, that price is projection, and it varies per assessed value of each home. Any questions?
Just for an understanding, this levy does not send anybody out to assess the homes. This is something the county does on their own every year, correct?
The county does that every year, and actually next year is the triennial year. Mm-hmm. So that happens every 3 years, and that's the time for next year. So the assessor's office are gonna go through each home and evaluate each home. And that, again, happens every 3 years. But district doesn't go out and look at each home and calculates the value of each home, no.
I have a question. Do you have any idea what surrounding school districts, how they're handling this? Is it a similar raise?
So it's the norm to ask for a lot. And the reason for it is because if you do not ask for a lot and the tax extension comes more than what you ask, that difference is gone forever and it's compounded. So historically in all districts, usually that have a high percentage of property taxes revenue, levy for more. Being that this year is the first year since 1990 of CPI above 5%, all the districts in the area that I've communicated with are levying more than 5%.
Thank you.
Can you go back to the CPI history slide? Just want to confirm something. So we're asking for this amount over 5%. Do you know off the top of your head so we've got these years where you call it 2% in the last couple of years. Did we ask for 5 those years because it was that ask for 5 but know that you're going to get less? Is this what we actually received, I should say?
So the question is, did we ask for more than, in 2014, ask more than 0.8%?
Yeah, so I know we asked for more than that, but did we ask for like 5? Was it like kind of every year we always asked for 5 because that was as much as we could ask for?
Yes. So it's usually that 4.99, that 5% or even more. We always ask for more than what we are going to be required to get. And it goes back to what I was saying, if we don't ask for it, we lose it. So historically, the district's been over levying. Do we receive that over levy? No.
So this is more of what we've actually received.
Correct. This is more of what we actually receive. So yes, historically, the districts always ask for more, but this is what we actually receive.
Yeah.
Anthony wasn't in the district, then.
Yeah.
So, right, we have always asked for more than 5%, because, as Anthony said, you don't want to leave money on the table, because you can never recover that. So, we would always ask, even when the projected CPI was 2 point something, we'd always ask for more than 5. The actual was always the 2.4. So.
And if you look at this slide, try to pull it up cleaner. On the bottom, you'll see the 2.3, 2.4, 2.7. Those are the actual difference between years of levy extensions. So it's not an increase of 5% of the cap, it's significantly lower.
Yeah, that's more, and it might just be helpful on the history slide to just see what we asked for.
So that
to like almost just reiterate, like, yes, we're asking for this much, and we know we're not going to receive it. We never receive it. This is how much we actually get.
So knowing that tonight the approval is over 5%, we have to hold a truth and taxation hearing, I will definitely add that slide to the December meeting when I present the approval of the tax levy.
And this is not raising anybody's taxes. This is a standard process year over year.
This is a standard process year over year. Every district levies for property taxes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll give you a second.
He's next.
Right.
You're still on.
For this one, I do not have a presentation. But we'll be going through the monthly financials. So in the board packet are the monthly financials for September and October. So I will be going through the monthly revenue expenditure budget comparison for October. So looking at the end of October, we received 41.88% of our revenue budgeted for the year. Of that 41%, 43.36% of property taxes budgeted were received, and that's in line with previous years. Looking on the expenditure side, 29.16% of expenditures have been spent compared to what was been budgeted. Within that 29.16%, 31.56% are coming from salaries. And I would like to note that in the revenue side, interest to date in October, over 700% was received, and that is because we changed the investment strategy to maximize the rates that are currently going on. So to date, through the end of October, we received $58,000 we received $58,000 of interest in the month of October, and in a total through October, $147,000 of interest. And all of our investments are posted in the board packet. Any questions?
Great. No further questions? We'll move to the medical insurance renewal discussion.
Yeah, so on October 24th, the insurance committee met as a group that consists of union representatives and myself. And then we also brought in One Digital, who is our third-party consultant for our insurance. The district is self-funded, but so they manage the relationships we have with the vendor. So they're a party vendor. The district's been using One Digital for many years. From my understanding, last year there was an increase of 6.3%, a renewal. That rate was lower than it should be, and that is because of the insurance committee saying, with COVID going on and helping the staff, that's decreased that decreased that percentage to help our staff, but in understanding that the following year we'll see a jump. So the insurance committee knew about that going into it. They were understanding, and in addition to that communication of the insurance committee, we also saw a large number of high claims, which is also driving a significant increase of our rates. So we're seeing a 13.9% increase of medical insurance from last year. Any questions? District currently has PPO and HMO coverage through Blue Cross Blue Shield. Through that coverage, we have Blue Choice PPO, which is a cheaper option than traditional PPO. And we saw that 95% of our current staff, those providers, are in Blue Choice. So if staff decide to go through traditional to Blue Choice, they actually would save money per paycheck.
So the union agreed to the 13.9%?
Yes,
Okay.
It's the board. The board would need to approve it fully, but all three unions were a part of the insurance committee. I sat down with them. They were understanding of what the communication they had last year and the reason why the increase. We also discussed changing open enrollment for next year. Currently, it's all paper format. We're doing all electronic next year. We are also trying to have constant communication during open enrollment of the Blue Choice option, which was new last year, so a lot of employees didn't take it. So we're gonna have One Digital come into each building, sit down with staff, explain what the difference is. There isn't a significant difference. We are also gonna show staff what providers are in Blue Choice and what are not, so they can save money per paycheck.
Great, thank you.
Any questions?
Do we feel good-ish with what we have here? Because I know insurance is a challenge. It's been a challenge for everybody, but it is also a challenge here. We're such a small district. We've got the self-funding factor, like all of those pieces. Do we feel like we're, moving forward in as positive of a direction as we could be?
Yeah, so I feel confident in the committee of vetting insurance plans. I also communicated with One Digital that with transitions going on, that we're doing our due diligence to see what is best for our staff. Mm-hmm. So I do feel confident knowing the history of the district and knowing the high claims of the reason why they increase. Mm-hmm. Districts are seeing an increase if they're self-funded or not self-funded. Everyone's seeing that increase. But I do feel confident of what we currently have. Going forward, we're going to continue doing our due diligence and looking to see what's best for the district.
Good. It's good to hear about the due diligence happening, because I think that was something that was more challenging, was are we asking the tough questions Is One Digital serving us the best? Like, are we doing as good as we possibly can? Because yeah, everybody's taken a.
Yeah, and hearing the committee talk, I think the biggest issue was communication. With the Blue Choice being the first year, last year, staff really didn't understand, the background of Blue Choice, what it consisted of, why the change. So that's why we're bringing One Digital in this upcoming Friday to really push, the knowledge of what is Blue Choice, what is PPO, what is HMO. Is your provider a Blue Choice or is it not a Blue Choice? So I do feel confident that this year we're going to see constant communication, and with collaboration with staff and implementing the open enrollment online, we'll see those numbers being more involved. We'll see claims decrease hopefully with just constant communication, constant wellness initiatives. So we'll do see that percent increase over time, but inflation is increasing. Our claims are extremely high currently. The original proposal came into 16%. So with negotiations with One Digital made with Blue Cross, that 13.9% is the best that they could do.
Cool, thank you.
I just want to make a statement if no one else has got a question. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate this. I'm kind of glad we lifted some of the burden on the chief business officer, and this is your only position is to look at money now, because we're getting clear, concise, more focused things that are a lot more transparent because you don't have 800 things on your plate. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
There are no other questions or comments. We'll move along to the IASB resolutions.
That's me.
Nice segue.
All right, guys, every year this comes up. A committee gets together to discuss resolutions that go through IASB, tweaks in current, I'm sorry, I'm flipping through to find the correct pages here. Tweaks in current rules, regulations, things that we have going on, different resolutions. Did everybody get a chance to glance at it? I know, it's a lot on our plate. I wanted to bring this up to see if anybody wanted to discuss anything. There is a committee that discusses these. They come to the board, they decide, they come to their meeting and decide, we really aren't going to vote on this. It's not something we need to discuss right now. All the other resolutions, they cover it, they cover the information, and they decide if it's something they're recommending for all the school districts to look at, to recommend or not recommend, and everything's in plain language there. I did not notice anything off the cuff this year. It's a lot less. Last year's were a mass amount because we had an off year. But if anybody had anything to bring to me, I can question them on Saturday. If not, if you feel comfortable.
And I was just gonna say and just re-ask the question. I didn't see, and I don't think I've gone as deep into it, but I didn't see anything that affected as like hugely, I guess.
Correct. Most of them are small things like changing the way you do just language and things, financing, school funds. Sometimes this does not affect a school like ours, and it's like outliers in rural areas. But it's just coming together in unison to decide if this is something or good or not. Like I said, if the committee has said no or not, it makes sense. So if anybody has no oppositions or need me to question anything.
No, I read through them. I agree with you. Go with their recommendations or not recommended,
Right. Yeah. All right. That's what I just wanted to know. I wanted to be on a consensus before I sit and press all the buttons on Saturday.
Push the buttons.
Push the buttons.
And moving on to our action items. There are a few. We'll start with the approval of the tentative 2022 tax levy. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the tentative 2022 tax levy as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, the chair will entertain a motion to authorize and direct the treasurer to pay bills received in November 2022 for the 2023 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes.
The chair will entertain a motion to authorize and direct the treasurer to pay taxi bills as they are received for fiscal year 2022-23 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Conover? Yes.
Motion passes. Number 4, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the resolution for the emergency expenditure of funds for special education transportation with Aurora Napier Transportation, AM Regional Taxi, American Taxi, and Downers Grove Taxi as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Conover? Yes. Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Medical insurance plan. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the medical insurance renewal with Blue Cross Blue Shield at a 13.9% increase effective January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Conover? Yes. Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Motion passes. Number 6, regarding Westmont High School graduation requirements. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the change in Westmont High School graduation requirements starting with the 2023-2024 school year by removing the specific 0.25 credit swim requirement as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Conover? Yes. Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes. Regarding Westmont High School new course proposal. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the new Westmont High School course proposal for AP African American Studies, AP Pre-Calculus, and Personal Wellness as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Conover? Yes. Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Motion passes. And then the Westmont High School course name change. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the name changes for the English courses at Westmont High School as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Conover? Yes. Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Moving to the superintendent's report.
So a couple items in my report. First, December 3rd is the Holidays Parade, and it's been tradition that the school board has walked in the parade. The parade starts at 5 p.m., and if you're planning to walk in the parade, the staging area is at 4:15 in front of Manning School, and both you and your family are welcome to walk in the parade. So hopefully you'll join us on December 3rd. And then also just a reminder for anybody who is considering running for the Board of Education, you need to file your intent with the DuPage County Clerk's Office between December 12th and December 19th, if that's your intent. And then lastly, today, November 15th, is Illinois School Board Member Day. So thank you to all of our board members for your time and commitment. It's a volunteer position. The last couple of years has been very challenging for school boards, and so it's greatly appreciated in the way that you have always put the students first in your decision making. And you have cake pops from Sweet and Savory. That was Shannon's thoughtful idea. And so please enjoy that as a small, very small token of appreciation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move along to board reports.
Nothing.
All right, I'll keep it moving. There are no public comments, so we'll go through our future meetings and events. So as a reminder, we are in the midst of our superintendent search. There will be a search focus group November 21st at 5:15 at the Westmont Junior High School. There's no school because of the Thanksgiving break from November 23rd to the 25th. Enjoy. The elementary PTO holiday shop is open November 18th, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., and also November 19th, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Miller Elementary School. The Westmont High School Band Craft Show is December 3rd, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Westmont High School. Don't miss it. Elementary PTO meeting, December 5th, 7 p.m. at Manning. Westmont Junior High School combined choral and band concert is December 6th, 7 p.m. at Westmont High School. There's a SIP day, early dismissal, December 7th, 2022. Westmont High School Fine Arts exhibit and concert will be December 7th at 6:30 p.m. at Westmont High School. And our next CUSD 201 board meeting, December 13th at 6 p.m., although there's technically special meetings.
Between now and then?
Right, there's
And November 29th and 30th.
Yes.
Right. Any other dates that anyone else has for the district? Lots going on. So with that, we'll now move to closed session to discuss personnel issues, student discipline. So we're returning. The chair will entertain a motion to enter closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Redonio?
Yes.
Ms. Hoover?
Yes.
Ms. Coyle?
Yes.
Ms. Steckity?
Yes.
Ms. Conover?
Yes. Do we have to say something about no action?
But there will be no
After
action.
closed?
No action. So there will be no action items after this. We'll return to adjourn our meeting after closed session.